Just be yourself is some of the best advice you'll ever hear, and also some of the most potentially dangerous advice that you can follow. Because most people hear that and think it means don't change anything. Don't improve yourself, and if people don't like you, that's their problem. And if you actually live like that, people won't like you. So let me explain what be yourself actually means because it is way more useful than people make it sound. And also the advice that once I understood it, made being social so much more fun. The first part of being yourself is actually very simple. You have to talk about things that you genuinely care about. People don't care about the topic, they care about the energy that you talk about it with. I saw this for the first time back in high school. I had a friend that was sitting at a table full of girls and started talking about the game Monster Hunter. They didn't care about this game at all, but he was so into it, like describing the fights and the monsters and getting excited about it, that they were all locked in, laughing and asking questions. And just to be clear, he was not carrying that with his looks at the time, though he did have a glow up eventually. All of this probably stemmed because one of them just happened to ask, "Oh, what have you been doing lately?" And this was what he wanted to talk about. His energy carried their interest. People don't get drawn in by what you're talking about. They get drawn in by how much you care about it. The second part is where people really mess this up. Being yourself doesn't mean that you say anything that you want, no matter what it is. It means that you're not afraid to express your real reactions. My personal rule is pretty simple. If what I'm saying is playful or makes me laugh, it's usually fine. If it's just mean or attacking somebody's identity, that's usually not a fun version of being authentic. One of my favorite questions to ask people when I'm out is, what is the most interesting thing that you do for fun? Or what's your most interesting hobby? One girl just yesterday answered this with, I like to smoke a lot of weed. To which I instantly snapped back. I said, interesting. Everyone laughed, including her, because even though it was a little bit mean, it was my real reaction to what she said. And more than that, on some level, she knew that this was a boring answer. So because I'm not afraid to react that way to something small, that group trusted that I was being real about what I was saying and doing. But even if you get rid of the psychology aspect of this, that was just a fun, real moment that I had that landed really well because I wasn't afraid of potentially hurting her feelings. I just reacted how I felt. It's not about never changing, never improving, and just being content with exactly where you are. It's about having real reactions to things and responding like a person, letting your inner thoughts out and being a little bit more unfiltered, living in the moment, being fun. That's what being yourself is, at least in terms of being a more social person and attracting the people that you'll actually get along with. Or to finish it in one line, being yourself isn't saying everything that you think, it's about meaning what you say. I feel like nowadays, a lot of people kind of keep this wall up around themselves, where if you ask them, for example, like, what do you like? They'll go, oh, I like traveling. But they'll say it with this sort of dead expression in their eyes that just doesn't really give you anything to hook into. Being authentic is about pushing through that, calling people out if they're giving you bad answers, and trying to make a connection that goes deeper than just this, hi, how you doing? Nice weather we're having. What do you think of the Phillies? Oh yeah, they're pretty good, glad they're winning. Or they're not right now. Honestly, if you're someone who struggles with social interaction, saying something that could make someone potentially dislike you is the harder part of this, because that comes from just calibration and trial and error. But what you can practice is talking about the things that interest you in a way that's interesting. One thing that I find really interesting is behavioral psychology, or systems in general. And recently I read a study that is absolutely insane. What they did was they took people and they put makeup on them to make them look incredibly disfigured. So for example, like big scars or really big moles on their face, things that are visually very obvious. They took those same people and then they said, okay, we want to see if people with these disfigurements are treated differently or not. So we're going to put this makeup on you and then you're going to do a job interview. And right before they went in for the job interview, they were pulled aside one final time and they said, ooh, real quick, let me touch up your makeup. And they took all of it off. And then these people went through the job interview looking completely normal. And afterwards, they were interviewed and asked questions like, do you feel like your interviewer made references to your scar? Do you feel like you were treated differently? Were you self-conscious of it? And the vast majority of the people involved in this experiment said yes. They did think they were treated differently. They thought that the person's eyes kept going to the disfigurement. And a few of them even said that the person interviewing them made a direct reference to their makeup. But obviously they couldn't have. They didn't have the makeup on anymore. So this just goes to show how strong perception is. Because these people felt as though they had this marking on their face, because they were self-conscious, they felt as though this interviewer was looking at it, even though it wasn't there. And all this is to say, this is my example of how I would talk about something that I cared about. Obviously, it's a little bit different because you can't talk back and we can't have a back and forth, but this is something that most people would not give a single shit about. Almost no one in their day-to-day life is reading research papers on behavioral psychology and looking into it and finding that interesting. But I'm genuinely passionate about this. And this is the most uninteresting thing that I'm interested in. So if I can talk about this and you found that even a little bit interesting, I promise you can talk about whatever you like and make it interesting. You probably do. You just do it with your friends and not to strangers. So many people get so uncomfortable and downplay their passion. If you do that, then no wonder you don't have fun talking to people. You're not talking about what you think is fun. Anyway, I could ramble about this forever because I genuinely do love this topic. I love self-improvement, and maybe I'm somewhere on some spectrum because it took me forever to understand this advice and apply it to myself, but the second that I did understand it, I've just been so much happier talking to people. And hopefully you can be too. I'm going to end it here. I've got something I'm really excited to do, an experiment that I'm running with my channel that is starting tomorrow. And I'm really curious if anybody will figure out what I'm doing halfway through the week or earlier. But we'll see. I'm actually going to make a community post about it because I don't know the direction that my content is going to go for this next week. Anyway, that is all from me. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, see ya.